Okay, in this video we're going to use Rhino to look at a digital fabrication technique called sectioning. And a good resource for this technique can be found in Lisa Iwamoto's book Digital Fabrication, which is shown here in this image. And to look at a full-scale version of this technique sectioning, this is the Metropole Parasol in Seville, Spain by the German architect Jürgen Meyer. And the idea is you take a free-form surface and you section it or contour it so that you can get these individual, in this case, individual wood slats, so to speak, that create and represent this free-form surface. So let's go ahead and head over to Rhino to get started. Okay, in Rhino we're going to make a space that's, for scale, let's say it's 10-foot cube. So let's go ahead and type in DOC, enter, and we'll go ahead and take a look at our units, just make sure they're set to inches. Distance display can be feet and inches. I'll go ahead and set up my grid so I have something to snap to, and I'll make my grid line count. I'll go ahead and make this 500. Minor grid lines are going to be every foot, so every 12 inches, and major lines are going to be every 10 minor grid lines. So I'll see a heavy outline that's going to be my 10 foot by 10 foot square. I'll set my snap spacing to be every foot or every 12 inches. Okay, and we'll zoom out, and then so I'm going to be working in this square here. That's my 10 foot by 10 foot square. So let's go ahead and set up some layers. Let's see what we have here. So I'm going to take layer 1 and I'm going to be placing or drawing my curves on layer 1. Layer 2, these will be my surfaces. And that's good for now. We'll add some layers as we go. So I'm going to go ahead and make 2 rails that I can sweep a section along those 2 rails. So I need to make sure that my grid snap is on so that I can snap to the grid lines that I've set up, and I'm going to go ahead and draw a polyline, and I'm going to make a faceted form, so that can be my first rail, and then this can be my second rail. And now I need the section that I'm going to sweep along those 2 rails. So I'm going to draw this in my front construction plane. So I'm going to type in C-plane, world, which is just a W, enter, and then F for front, enter. And my same grid layout applies in my snap spacing. So I can go ahead and draw another polyline to create my section. And I can always edit these points. If I want to change the way that polyline looks, I can select it, and F10 will turn on my control points, and I can go ahead and make some adjustments. Okay, we'll start with that and see how that looks. F11 will turn off the control points. And to get my construction plane back to the world, I type in C-plane, enter, W, enter, T, enter. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and make my surfaces layer current because I'm going to go ahead and make my sweep. So I'm going to type in sweep. And this is a sweep 2 because I have 2 rails in plan that I'm going to follow. So I select my first rail, my second rail, my section, press enter. I can get a preview of that, but I want to see this in my shaded, so I'm just clicking on this middle sphere at the top. So there we have our section, and I'll go ahead and yeah, that looks pretty good. We'll go ahead and accept that. Okay, so here is the section. Okay, what I don't like about this geometry, if I select it and I type in what, it is a poly surface, so it's made of several surfaces. So editing this surface can be problematic. For instance, if I want to rebuild it, because right now it's very faceted, but let's say I want to make it curved or a double curved surface. If I select it and type in rebuild, which would be the way that I would rebuild the surface to have curvature, and I hit enter, it doesn't recognize it as a surface because it is a poly surface. So we're going to sweep this with some different options. So I'm going to go ahead and delete this, and I'm going to type in sweep 2, select my first and second rails, select my section, and this time I'm going to rebuild this. And if I click on preview just with 5 control points, which I believe is the default, you see it starts to give this curvature. And as I add control points, I get different curvature. And the other thing that you'll notice is it's not maintaining the height, it's also undulating in the vertical direction. So the top of that is not keeping the same height. So I have an option to maintain the height. So you see the difference there. So I'm going to leave that option on. And let's try 30 control points. Okay, so now I have a surface with some curvature. Okay, so let's continue with this surface. So this idea of sectioning, if we wanted to digitally fabricate this out of, let's say, some wood slats using a CNC machine. So we'll go ahead and rename layer 3. We're going to call this horizontal sections. And we'll make that layer current. So I'm going to go ahead and type in the command contour and assign layers by current layer, join curves by poly surface. There's options. There's none, poly surface, and contour plane. I'm going to change that to poly surface. Select objects for contours. That's going to be this surface that we created using the sweep 2. Press enter. The contour base point, so at the very bottom at 0, 0, I'm going to pick that point. Now it wants a direction perpendicular to the contour planes. So if I go to my front view, I can have a direction perpendicular. Since these are my horizontal sections, I need a vertical line. And I'm just switch back to perspective view. So now it's the distance between contours. I'm going to set this up to be 8 inches. It can be whatever you want. I'm going to go ahead and delete the top one. I don't need that. Okay, so now I have my horizontal sections. I have those on a layer, so I can turn some of these off and we can see these. Okay, and I can do the same thing in the vertical direction. So I'm going to change layer 4. We're going to call this vertical sections. Go ahead and make that current. And I'm going to select my surface, type in contour. My base point can be 0, 0. Direction perpendicular. So this is going to be my horizontal line. These are my vertical sections. So this is a horizontal line. Distance between contours, I can leave that at 8 inches. Okay. Turn off the surfaces and the curves. So there you see all of the contour lines. Okay, so let's begin the sectioning process. So on the CNC, let's say we're going to use 3/4 inch plywood, and we're going to make the sections 4 inches in width, so 4 inches by 3/4 inches in depth. So I'm going to start with one of these vertical sections, and I'm going to hide everything else. So I'm going to go to my light bulb, click and hold, and I'm going to choose the light bulb with the black and yellow box, which takes everything that's not selected and hides it, selects it and hides it. So I have this one curve isolated. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start to give this a thickness, start to give it a dimension. So I'm going to first start by offsetting, and I'm going to use a distance of 4 inches, and I'm going to offset this curve inward toward the inside. Okay, and now I'm going to go ahead and close up this so it's a closed polyline. So I'm going to draw a line from my outer sections using the shift key, just drawing these across so that it's flat, so it terminates at the ground plane flat. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to trim all of this. So I'm just going to select everything and start to trim this away. Okay, and now I'm going to select it all and join it. And if I type in what, enter, I see that it's a closed polyline curve. So that's what I'm looking for. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a surface. So I'm going to make my new layer, or change my layer 5 name. This will be the vertical sections surfaces, and I'll go ahead and make that current. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude this curve, and you see the direction of this. It wants to extrude it in the Z direction, and I want to extrude it in the Y, on the XY plane. So I'm going to click on direction, and I'm going to snap here and here. That's my direction for my extrusion. Okay, I want it to be both sides. I want solid to be equal to yes. My extrusion distance, in this case, since it's both sides, right now that's saying 3/4 inch. That's going to give me 1.5 inch extrusion. So I'm going to go ahead and extrude this 3/8, half of 3/4, and there we go. And yeah, you want to double check these dimensions. So I'm going to type in distance, enter, and as long as my endpoints are set. So that's 3/4 inch. So that's going to be one of my sections, or one of my ribs. So I can do this just to demonstrate how we're going to do this. I'm going to do this a few more times. So I had hid a bunch of geometry, so I'm going to type in show to get that geometry back. And I'll do this with a couple more sections. So let's try that one. Okay, so same process, just starting by offsetting this 4 inches inward, drawing some lines from the outer, the original curve, using the shift key. Selecting it all, typing in trim, enter, and trimming away what I don't need. Okay, and then I can select it all and join it. Okay, so you see it's put it on my current layer, but I can select it and put it back on my vertical sections layer. Okay, and now I'm going to extrude, select my curves. Okay, again, it doesn't know what direction, so I can click on direction, tell it the direction to extrude. Both sides, it's set to 3/8, solid is yes, enter. Okay, type in show to get my geometry back. I'm going to do this with one more of these. Okay, again, I'm going to offset 4 inches to the inside, draw my bottom lines from the original curve, select it all, trim, join it, put it on the vertical sections layer. Okay, extrude it. Okay, let's turn everything else back on. Alright, so there we have our 3 vertical sections. And let's now, so the way we're going to do this is we're going to notch the horizontal sections into the vertical sections. So I'm going to do the same similar process we just did with a few of these horizontal sections. So I'll isolate that one. Okay, so I'm going to offset this. Okay, so I'm going to offset it both sides. So the other one we were just offsetting to the inside. This I'm going to offset both sides so I can notch into my vertical section. So I'm going to use both sides. So that means my distance needs to be set to 2 inches. Select the curve I want to offset. So here we go. Okay, I'm going to make my horizontal section layer current so that when it offsets that, it's on the right layer. So I don't need the one in the middle anymore. Okay, that was the original one, so I can delete that. Then I can go ahead and close this off. I'm just going to keep my beginning and end profiles. I'm going to keep them straight. So we'll go ahead and select this and trim it. Okay. Go ahead and join it. And we're going to go ahead and extrude. So right now it's in the Z direction. It's extruding by default in the Z. So I don't have to change my direction. Both sides yes, solid yes. 3/8 is set, so I can just hit enter. Just want to double check this distance. Make sure that it's 3/4. Okay. Okay, so let's go ahead and make a new layer. These will be my horizontal sections, surfaces, and go ahead and make that layer current. Just want to see the names of these. Okay, so my surface is going to go on to that new layer. Okay, so I want to do this for a few more, so I'm going to go ahead and show the rest of these. Let me go ahead and change these colors. So okay, so again we'll do this for a couple more of these. Okay, we're going to offset that. Both sides. Go ahead and make our flat ends. Trim it. Get rid of this guy. Join. Oops. Join all of this together. This color is hard to read. Okay, this should be back on my horizontal sections layer. Alright, so we'll go ahead and extrude. Both sides yes, solid yes. Okay, let's show everything. Okay, let's go ahead and do one more of these. Make my horizontal sections layer current. We'll go ahead and offset this, both sides. Draw our end lines. Go ahead and delete that inner one. Select it all. Trim it. Join them. Make that horizontal section surface layer current. extrude. Okay, we'll show everything. Okay, so now you see that these slats are going to notch into the vertical sections. So I want to actually have this geometry, I want to have it physically show the notch or contain the notch. So I can do that with a Boolean difference, which is a Boolean subtraction. So if I type in the command Boolean difference, select surfaces or poly surfaces to subtract from, and those are these, my green ones, my horizontal sections. That's what I'm going to subtract from. Enter. Select surfaces or poly surfaces to subtract with. I'm going to use the vertical sections to subtract with. Okay. So now if I pull this away, you'll see that it actually has the physical notches in there. Okay, that I can use the CNC to go ahead and notch those out. Okay, let me just undo one step to get that back. Okay, so we've created this three-dimensional section or rib geometry that has subtractions in it. Now, when we're working with the CNC, we need two-dimensional curves. And this can also be done with a laser cutter as well, so CNC or laser cutter. So I want to make two-dimensional curves or two-dimensional outlines or profiles from these three-dimensional surfaces. Okay, so let's go ahead and isolate one of these. And what I'm going to do is I need to turn this into 2D geometry. So I'm going to type in the command duplicate edge. It's dup edge for short. And I'm going to have to really get in here and find my edges that I want to duplicate. And I'm just going to use the top edges of this profile that I made. So this part you have to be a little bit careful. Duplicate border is another command that you can use that will duplicate the entire border of this, but it doesn't work on a poly surface. So what I can do, if I can do this process, I can keep going. But if I hit escape, now do these actually duplicate? No. So what I can do is I can explode this. Okay, and now there is a top poly surface. So if I isolate that, well, not a poly surface, it's a top surface. If I go ahead and isolate that, now I have this surface. So now I can try my dupe border, and I can select that. Okay, and it duplicated one border. If I hide the surface, okay, so that's a much faster way. I'm going to put that on my horizontal section. Oh, I don't have that. Let me make my new layer. So this will be my hor section curves, or we'll call them outlines. Make that current. Go ahead and put that on there. Okay, so now I have a two-dimensional shape that I could laser cut or CNC. So let's go ahead and try this again. So I'm going to type in show. We'll do it with this poly surface here. Go ahead and isolate that. Oops. Okay, and again, if I select this and type in what, it's a poly surface, so I can't duplicate the border on a poly surface, so I'm going to explode it. Then I have every surface. I'm going to isolate that top surface, type in the command dupe border, select it. Okay, if I hide this surface, so there's my outline. Okay, so if I show everything again, so then what I can start to do, if I select these curves, I'm going to copy them just off the, now, this is, a point where you want to start labeling these. So let me undo that. So I'm going to make a new layer. I'm going to just call this labels, make it current. So let's say that I turn all these other layers off. So right now it's pretty simple because I just have these two horizontal outlines, and I'm going to change the color of this text. Okay, so I can start to label these. So I'm going to type in the command text. I'm going to make my start point. I'm going to snap to the geometry, and I'm going to call this, you'd want to set up a numbering system. So it could be the alphabet, it could be numbers. So I'm going to start this as H0 for horizontal 0. I'm not sure about the size, 2 inches. Let me just take a look at what that looks like. Okay, that's fine. And I can do the same thing for this other one. So this will be H1. Okay, so I can start to label these. And I'm going to keep the originals there, and I'm going to go ahead and copy these off to the side. Okay, so I'm just going to move this one. So I'm going to need to know the order that they are three-dimensionally. Now these need to be flattened down or projected to the C-plane. So I don't know if I can do this in a perspective view. Let's see if I can type in project to C-plane. Delete. Yeah, I want to delete the input objects in this case. Alright, so there you go. So now those are flattened pieces that I can start to lay these out for laser cutting or CNCing, and they're also labeled H0, H1. Those can be CNC'd into the wood. They can be laser cut etched also if you're using a laser cutter. So the labeling is important so that you can piece these things back together. Okay, just to turn everything back on. So that's a quick little intro into sectioning using Rhino in a very basic way to get someone started before they do this, let's say parametrically in Grasshopper. So I hope you enjoy this video. Thank you.